The red light blinked at exactly 3:33 a.m. again, same as it had for the past 6 weeks. Line 2. Always line 2. I've been working the overnight shift at WKRP 94.7 for 3 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. Drunk callers, lonely insomniacs, even the occasional prank. But this call breaks every rule I know about radio, about time, and about what's possible. The voice on the other end died in a car crash 37 years ago. I have the newspaper clipping to prove it. Yet somehow, Rebecca Martinez calls me every single night. My name's Danny, and I work the graveyard shift at WKRP, a classic rock station in Millfield, Ohio. It's not glamorous, mostly playing automated playlists and taking the occasional request from truckers or night shift workers. The station's been around since 1962, broadcasting from this old converted warehouse on the edge of town. The building has character, which is radio speak for everything's falling apart. Flickering fluorescent lights, coffee-stained carpet, and equipment that should have been replaced during the Clinton administration. But it pays the bills, and I actually like the solitude. There's something peaceful about being the only voice in the darkness, connecting with insomniacs and night owls across 3 counties. My shift runs from midnight to 6 a.m. Most nights, I get maybe 5 or 6 calls total, usually requests for Def Leppard or someone asking if we have traffic updates. The phone system's ancient, one of those old multi-line beasts with physical buttons that click when you press them. Line 1 for the main studio number, line 2 for requests, line 3 for the business office, and line 4 that nobody ever explained to me. The calls started exactly 6 weeks ago tonight. I remember because it was the anniversary of my hiring, and I was feeling pretty good about making it 3 years at the same job. That's a record for me. I was playing a Metallica block, just settling into my chair with a fresh cup of coffee, when line 2 lit up at 3:33 a.m. I almost didn't answer. Late-night request lines attract weirdos, and I wasn't in the mood for someone asking me to play Stairway to Heaven backwards or whatever. But something about that blinking red light felt urgent, so I picked up. WKRP, you're on the air. Static. Heavy, crackling static like you'd hear on an old AM radio during a thunderstorm. Then faintly a woman's voice. Hello, is this Danny? That caught me off guard. Nobody calls asking for the DJ by name, not on the overnight shift. I'm barely mentioned in our station promos. Yeah, this is Danny. What can I play for you tonight? More static then. Danny, I need you to listen carefully. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I'm calling from Highway 23, about 2 miles south of the Millfield exit. There's been an accident. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone for a solid minute. Highway 23 runs right past our transmission tower. If there was an accident, I should call it in. But something felt off. The voice had this strange quality, distant, like it was coming from very far away. And the static? Modern cell phones don't create that kind of interference. I called the sheriff's department anyway. Deputy Harrison, who I knew from high school, took my call. Danny, what's going on? Hey, Mike, I just got a call about an accident on Highway 23, south of the Millfield exit. Woman named Rebecca Martinez. Might want to send someone to check it out. Long pause. Danny, I'm looking at our dispatch log. No reports of any accidents tonight, and I just drove that stretch about an hour ago. All clear. Maybe it just happened? I'll send a unit to check, but... Rebecca Martinez, you said? Yeah. Why? Another. Pause longer this time. Nothing. I'll get back to you. He never did. But the next night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., line 2 blinked red again. This time, I was ready. I had my notepad out and my phone set to record. WKRP, you're on the air. Same static, same distant voice. Hello? Is this Danny? Rebecca? Rebecca Martinez? Yes. Danny, thank God. I've been trying to reach someone. I'm on Highway 23, about 2 miles south of the Millfield exit. My car, there's been an accident. I think I hit something. I'm scared, Danny. It's so dark out here, and my radio. Your station is the only thing coming through clearly. I looked at my recording app. It was running, but the level meters weren't moving. Like the phone wasn't picking up any sound at all. Rebecca, can you see any landmarks? Mile markers? Signs? I can see your tower. The red light on top. It's blinking. Our tower light doesn't blink. It's a steady red beacon, required by the FAA for aircraft safety. Has been for as long as I've worked here. Rebecca, what kind of car are you driving? A blue Honda Civic. 1987. Danny, I think I'm hurt. There's blood on the steering wheel. And I can't seem to get out of the car. The line went dead again. This time, I didn't call the sheriff. Instead, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove out to Highway 23 during my break at 4 a.m. The road was empty, no sign of any accident, no skid marks, no debris, no blue Honda Civic, but at exactly the spot she described, 2 miles south of the Millfield exit, there was something that made my blood run cold. A small roadside memorial, flowers, mostly dead, and a wooden cross with a name painted in fading white letters, Rebecca Martinez, 1965-1987. The next morning, I couldn't concentrate on anything. Rebecca's voice kept echoing in my head, along with the image of that roadside memorial. I'd driven past that spot hundreds of times over the years, but I'd never really looked at it. Now it was all I could think about. I waited until the Millfield Public Library opened at 9 a.m. and went straight to the local history section. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, knew me from my occasional research projects. I sometimes did historical segments for the morning show. Looking for anything specific today, Danny? Car accidents from 1987. Specifically, someone named Rebecca Martinez. Her expression shifted slightly. Oh, that poor girl. Hold on. She disappeared into the back room and returned with a bound volume of the Millfield Gazette from 1987. The pages were yellowed and brittle, but the headlines were still clear. She flipped to the October section and pointed to a front-page story, dated October 15, 1987. Local woman dies in Highway 23 crash. The article was brief but devastating. Rebecca Martinez, 22, had been driving home from her job at the Millfield General Hospital, where she worked as a nursing assistant. She'd been pulling a double shift, her second job to help pay for nursing school. At approximately 3:30 a.m., her blue 1987 Honda Civic had veered off Highway 23, 2 miles south of the Millfield exit. The car had struck a tree. She died instantly. There was a photo. A young woman with dark hair and kind eyes, smiling in what looked like a graduation picture. The caption read, Rebecca Martinez planned to become a registered nurse, but the details that made my hands shake were in the last paragraph. The investigating officer noted that Martinez had apparently tried to call for help. The car's radio was still on when they found her, tuned to WKRP 94.7. The phone records showed she'd attempted to call the station multiple times in the minutes before her death, but the calls never went through due to poor reception in that area. She'd been trying to reach us. Trying to reach someone, anyone who could help her. I photocopied the article and drove back to the station. Jim Hartley, our station manager, was in his office doing paperwork. He'd been at WKRP since the 70s and knew every piece of station history. Jim, do you remember a Rebecca Martinez car accident in 1987? His pen stopped moving. He looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Part surprise, part something else. Fear, maybe. Where did you hear that name? I told him. About the calls. All of it. He listened without interrupting, his face growing paler with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he walked to his filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder labeled Incident Reports, 1987-1995. Danny, you're not the first person she's called. The folder contained reports from 3 other overnight DJs who'd worked at WKRP over the years. Each report was handwritten, detailing the same experience. Calls at 3:33 a.m., static. Rebecca Martinez asking for help with an accident on Highway 23. Each DJ had investigated and found the same memorial, the same newspaper article. The first report was dated November 1987, just a month after Rebecca's death. DJ named Carl Winters had documented 5 calls over 2 weeks before quitting, without explanation. The second was from 1994, Maria Santos, who'd lasted 3 nights before requesting a transfer to the day shift. The third was from 2003, Robert Kim, who'd recorded one of the calls but quit when he played it back and found only static. Jim, Why didn't you tell me about this? Because I hoped it was over. Robert was the last one to report it. That was over 20 years ago. I thought maybe she'd moved on. Why is she calling now? Why me? Jim pulled out another file. This one contained technical reports about the station's equipment upgrades over the years. Look at the dates, Danny. Every time she's called, it's been during periods when we were having technical problems with our transmitter. 1987, we had a power surge that knocked us off the air for 3 days. 1994, lightning strike damaged our antenna. 2003, we upgraded our entire transmission system. And now, check your maintenance log. We've been having intermittent power fluctuations for the past 2 months. The engineering report says it's affecting our signal strength, especially during overnight hours. I flipped through the maintenance records. Sure enough, there were reports of power irregularities dating back to early September, right around the time the call started. So when our signal is weak, she can get through? That's my theory. The technical report from 1987 said she was trying to call the station when she died. Maybe some part of that energy, that desperate need to connect, got caught in our transmission somehow. When the signal's strong, it overpowers whatever allows her through. But when it's weak, the barrier breaks down. Danny, I have to ask, are you okay? The other DJs? Carl had a nervous breakdown. Maria started seeing things that weren't there. Robert became obsessed with the paranormal, lost his job, his family. This, whatever this is, it changes people. I wanted to tell him I was fine, that I could handle it. But the truth was, I wasn't sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that roadside memorial. Every time the phone rang, I expected to hear Rebecca's voice. What do you want me to do? That's up to you. I can transfer you to days, find someone else for the overnight shift, or you can try to help her. But Danny, if you choose that path, there's no guarantee you'll come back from it the same person. I chose to stay. Looking back, I'm not sure why. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the journalist in me that needed to know the full story. Or maybe it was something simpler. Rebecca Martinez had been trying to call for help for 37 years, and I was the only one listening. The calls continued every night, always at 3:33 a.m., always the same plea for help. But after my conversation with Jim, I started paying closer attention to the details. Rebecca's voice, the static, the background sounds that seemed to seep through the connection. Night 4, I heard music in the background, faint, but definitely there. Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. The song was playing on our station when she called, but it was also playing on her car radio in 1987. Night 5. The static cleared enough for me to hear wind. Not just any wind, the specific sound of air moving through tree branches. The same trees that lined Highway 23 where her car crashed. Night 6. I heard her breathing, quick, panicked breaths between her words. She was scared and hurt, and by the end of the first week, I'd started talking to her differently. Instead of just taking her information and promising to send help, I tried to comfort her. Rebecca, I'm here. I'm listening. Tell me what you need. Danny, I can't move. My door won't open. The steering wheel, it's pressed against my chest. I think I'm really hurt this time. Can you try the passenger door? I'll try. I could hear her struggling, the creak of metal, her sharp intake of breath when she moved wrong. It's stuck too. Danny, what if nobody finds me? What if I die out here? The line went dead, but her question hung in the air. She already had died, 37 years ago. So why was she still stuck in that moment, still trapped in that car? I started researching everything I could about Rebecca Martinez. The newspaper article was just the beginning. I found her high school yearbook at the library. She'd been on the honor roll, president of the Future Nurses Club. I tracked down her former classmates on social media. The picture that emerged was of someone who dedicated her life to helping others. Sarah Kellerman, her best friend, agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. Rebecca was supposed to be a nurse, Sarah told me, stirring her latte with shaking hands. Not just any nurse. She was going to work in the emergency room. She wanted to be the person who saved lives when it mattered most. The night she died, she was coming home from the hospital, double shift. She'd been working 2 jobs to pay for nursing school. She was so close to graduating, Danny, just 6 more months. Did she ever mention any specific patients? Anyone she was worried about? Sarah's expression changed. There was this one case that really bothered her. A little girl who'd been in a car accident. 8 years old, came in during Rebecca's shift a few weeks before. Before it happened, the girl died while Rebecca was trying to help her. Rebecca blamed herself, even though the doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. What was the girl's name? Emma. Emma Patterson. Rebecca said she kept thinking she could have done something different, worked faster, been smarter. She was haunted by it. That night, I approached the call differently. Rebecca, it's Danny. Before we talk about your accident, I want you to know something. I've been learning about your life. About Emma Patterson. The static cleared immediately. You know about Emma? I know she died. And I know you tried to save her. I also know that her death wasn't your fault. Silence. Then, quietly, I keep thinking if I'd been faster. If I'd noticed the internal bleeding sooner. Rebecca, listen to me. I spoke to the doctors who were there that night. They said you did everything right. Emma's injuries were too severe. No one could have saved her, but I was supposed to help people. That's why I became a nurse. That's why I was working those double shifts to finish school, to get better at saving lives. You did help people. You helped hundreds of people during your time at the hospital. Not enough. Not Emma. And now I can't help anyone. I'm stuck here, Danny. I'm stuck in this car, and I can't get out, and I can't save anyone. For the first time since the calls started, I understood what was happening. Rebecca wasn't just trapped in the moment of her death. She was trapped by her guilt, her sense of unfinished business. She died believing she'd failed as a healer, and that failure had anchored her to this place, this time, this endless loop of seeking help she couldn't receive. Rebecca, what if I told you there was still a way to help people? What do you mean? Your story. Your dedication to helping others. What if people could learn from that? Over the next several nights, our conversations grew longer. Rebecca began sharing memories from her life. Patients she'd comforted, families she'd supported, the small acts of kindness that had defined her work. With each story, her voice became clearer, the static less intrusive. But something else was happening too. The technical problems at the station were getting worse. Lights flickered constantly now. Equipment malfunctioned. The transmitter's power fluctuations were becoming more extreme. And I was changing. I'd lost 15 pounds because I couldn't eat. Sleep was impossible. During my off hours, I found myself driving to Highway 23, standing at Rebecca's memorial, talking to empty air. Jim called me into his office after I'd been on the air for 2 weeks. Danny, you look terrible. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. When's the last time you went home? I couldn't remember. I'd been staying at the station, napping in the break room between shows. Home felt too far away from Rebecca, from the connection we'd built. This is exactly what happened to the others, Jim said. You're disappearing into this thing. Whatever she is, whatever she needs, it's consuming you. She's not consuming me. She's helping me understand something. What? That some connections transcend death. That love and dedication, and the need to help others, that doesn't just disappear when someone dies. It finds a way to continue. Jim looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The breakthrough came on night 15. I'd been staying at the station full time now, sleeping on the couch in Jim's office, eating vending machine food, and spending my days researching every detail of Rebecca's life and death. The memorial on Highway 23 had become my second home. I'd sit there for hours, talking to her grave marker, trying to understand what kept her tethered to that moment. That evening, before my shift started, I made a discovery that changed everything. I'd been going through old hospital records, trying to piece together Rebecca's final weeks. The Millfield General Hospital had closed in 1995, but their personnel files had been donated to the local historical society. With Mrs. Chen's help, I'd been able to access Rebecca's employment records, her performance reviews, and most importantly, her incident reports. The file on Emma Patterson was thicker than I'd expected. Rebecca had filled out multiple reports about the case, detailing every decision she'd made, every procedure she'd followed, every moment of that terrible night. But it was the final report, filed 3 days before Rebecca's death, that made me understand everything. In her own handwriting, Rebecca had written, "Upon further review of the Patterson case with Dr. Williams, I have determined that my actions were appropriate and within protocol. However, I continue to feel that I could, though, have done more. I am requesting a transfer to the day shift to allow me more time to study advanced trauma procedures. I believe with additional training, I can be more effective in emergency situations. My goal is to return to emergency nursing better prepared, to save lives that others might consider unsavable." She hadn't been running from her failure with Emma Patterson. She'd been running toward becoming better, stronger, more capable of helping others. The night she died, she wasn't fleeing her guilt. She was driving home to study, to prepare for the next person who would need her help. When 3:33 a.m. arrived, I was ready with this new information. "Rebecca, I found your final report about Emma Patterson." The static was minimal tonight, her voice clearer than ever. "You read it? You weren't giving up on nursing. You were planning to get better at it." "I had to, Danny. After Emma, I realized there was so much I didn't know, so many ways I could improve. I'd already talked to Dr. Williams about additional training. I was going to specialize in pediatric trauma. Because of Emma. Because of Emma. She taught me that every life matters, that even when we lose someone, we can learn from that loss, make ourselves better, save the next person. Rebecca, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about the answer. Okay. In all these years, in all these calls to WKRP, have you helped anyone? Has anyone been saved because you reached out?" Long pause. The static returned briefly, then cleared. I don't know. I just know I'm trapped here, in this car, and I can't get out to help anyone. What if I told you that you have helped people? What if I told you that your story has already saved lives? What do you mean? This was the moment I'd been building toward. Over the past 2 weeks, I'd done more than just research Rebecca's past. I'd started sharing her story. Not on the air. That would have been exploitative. But I'd reached out to nursing programs, to hospitals, to medical professionals who might understand what Rebecca represented. Rebecca, I've been in contact with the Millfield Community College nursing program. They want to establish a scholarship in your name. The Rebecca Martinez Memorial Scholarship for students who demonstrate exceptional dedication to helping others. Silence. I've also spoken to the emergency department at Regional Medical Center. They're implementing a new protocol for trauma cases, inspired by your dedication to continuous improvement. They're calling it the Martinez Method, a systematic approach to learning from every case, win or lose. Danny, I don't understand. How can I be helping people if I'm stuck here? Because your story, your dedication, your refusal to give up, your commitment to getting better even after facing failure, that story is inspiring people. Real people, in the real world, right now. But I died. I never got to finish nursing school. I never got to implement what I learned from Emma's case. Rebecca, listen to me very carefully. You did finish nursing school, not in the traditional way, but you did. Every nurse who learns from your story, every life that gets saved because someone was inspired by your dedication, that's you finishing what you started. The static grew louder, but not in the usual way. This time it sounded like voices, distant but clear enough to make out words. Thank you. We remember. You helped us. Danny, what is that? I think it's the people you've helped. The ones who've been inspired by your story. The nurses who've worked harder because they learned about your dedication. The patients who survived because those nurses were better prepared. But how is that possible? Because love doesn't die, Rebecca. Neither does the desire to help others. When someone dedicates their life to saving people, that energy doesn't just disappear when they die. It finds ways to continue, to touch other lives, to keep helping. The voices, they're saying thank you. They're saying thank you because you never stopped being a nurse. You've been healing people for 37 years, Rebecca. You just couldn't see it because you were looking in the wrong place. I've been looking at the car crash, instead of looking at the lives you've touched. Danny, I can see light. Not the red light from your tower. Different light. Warm light. What else do you see? People. So many people, they're all wearing scrubs, nurses, and they're smiling at me. They're holding hands, forming a line that goes on and on. I think they're the ones who were helped by my story. Emma's there too, isn't she? Yes, she's at the front of the line. She looks proud. She should be. You used her death to inspire a lifetime of helping others. That's the greatest gift anyone could give. Danny, the car door. It's opening. I can get out now. Then go, Rebecca. Go help people. You've been doing it all along. Thank you, Danny. For listening. For understanding. For helping me see. The line went dead, but this time, it felt different. Final, but peaceful. The silence that followed Rebecca's final call was unlike anything I'd experienced in my 3 years at WKRP. It wasn't just the absence of her voice. It was the absence of the static, the electrical interference, the sense of otherworldly presence that had permeated the station for the past 2 weeks. For the first time since the calls began, the building felt normal. The lights stopped flickering. The transmitters stabilized. Even the coffee machine, which had been making strange grinding noises, returned to its usual quiet hum. I sat in the broadcast booth until dawn, playing music on autopilot, processing what had happened. Had I really helped a spirit find peace? Or had I simply talked myself through some kind of elaborate delusion brought on by sleep deprivation and grief? The answer came the next morning, in the form of 3 phone calls. The first was from Dr. Sarah Chen at Millfield Community College. I'd contacted her a week earlier about the scholarship idea, expecting a polite rejection. Instead, she was calling to tell me that the nursing faculty had unanimously approved the Rebecca Martinez Memorial Scholarship. More than that, they wanted to expand it into a full program focused on trauma nursing and continuous professional development. Mr. Foster, I have to tell you, when I researched Rebecca Martinez for our proposal, I found something remarkable. We've had 3 graduates over the years who specifically cited her story as their inspiration for entering nursing. They'd all heard about her from different sources: family members who worked at the old hospital, professors who remembered her case, people who'd visited her memorial. Her influence has been spreading organically for decades. The second call was from Lisa Patterson, Emma's older sister. She'd been 10 years old when Emma died, and she'd never forgotten the young nurse who'd tried so hard to save her sister. I became a pediatric trauma nurse because of Rebecca Martinez, Lisa told me. I never knew her name until you reached out to the hospital, but I knew her story. My parents always talked about the nurse who cried when Emma died, who stayed late to hold our hands, who promised she'd learn from what happened. I've been carrying that story with me for 37 years. The third call was from Jim Hartley, and it changed everything. Danny, you need to come to my office. Now. When I arrived, Jim was sitting behind his desk with a stack of old files spread out in front of him. His face was pale and his hands were shaking slightly. Jim, what's wrong? I lied to you about Rebecca Martinez, about the calls. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? There were no other DJs. No incident reports from Carl Winters or Maria Santos or Robert Kim. I made all of that up. Why? Jim pulled out a single file folder, much older than the others I'd seen. The tab was labeled Personal, J. Hartley. Because I was the one who received the first calls. In 1987, I was working the overnight shift when Rebecca Martinez died. He opened the folder and pulled out a handwritten report, yellowed with age. It was in his handwriting, dated November 15, 1987. She called me for 2 weeks straight. Same time, same message. I was 23 years old, Danny. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do, so I quit. I took a day job at another station and never worked nights again. Until you became manager here. Yeah. And when other people started reporting similar experiences, I created those fake incident reports to make it seem like I'd handled it professionally. But the truth is, I ran away. I left her there, calling out for help, and I ran away. I looked at the dates on his original report. Rebecca had stopped calling him on November 29th, 1987. According to my research, that was the same day the first article about her story appeared in the nursing school newsletter, an article that had inspired several students to dedicate themselves to trauma nursing. Jim, she didn't need you to solve her problem. She needed you to listen, to bear witness, to help her story reach the people who could be inspired by it. But I didn't do any of that. I just ran. Maybe that was part of the plan. If you'd stayed, if you'd tried to help her the way I did, her story might have ended in 1987. Instead, it kept growing, kept inspiring people, until someone came along who could help her see what she'd accomplished. Jim stared at the report for a long moment. Do you really believe that? That this was all orchestrated somehow? I believe that Rebecca Martinez was a healer in life, and she remained a healer in death. I believe that some souls are so dedicated to helping others that they find ways to continue their work even after they're gone. And I believe that sometimes those souls need someone to help them understand their own impact. The calls have stopped? Completely. The station's back to normal. Rebecca's moved on. And you? Are you okay? That was the question I'd been asking myself since dawn. Was I okay? I'd lost weight, lost sleep, lost touch with most of my normal routines. I'd become obsessed with a dead woman's story to the point where I'd neglected my own life. But as I sat in Jim's office, looking at his confession, I realized something important. I'm better than okay, Jim. I helped someone who'd been in pain for 37 years find peace. I helped connect her story to people who could be inspired by it. I learned that death isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's a transformation. What happens now? Now the Rebecca Martinez Memorial Scholarship gets established. The nursing program gets funded. Her story gets told to the people who need to hear it. And somewhere out there, nurses who've never heard her name will work a little harder, care a little more because the energy she put into the world is still flowing. And you go back to playing classic rock and taking requests? I laughed, surprising myself. Yeah, I guess I do. But it'll be different now. Every call I take, every person I talk to in the middle of the night, I'll remember that sometimes people reach out not just for music, but for connection, for someone to hear their story and understand that they matter. Jim nodded slowly. Think she's really at peace now? I know she is. I can feel it. And I could. The station felt lighter somehow, as if a weight that had been pressing down on it for decades had finally been lifted. Rebecca Martinez was no longer trapped in that moment of impact on Highway 23. She was free to continue her healing work in whatever realm awaited her, knowing that her dedication had inspired countless others to carry on her mission of saving lives. That was 6 months ago. The scholarship fund has raised over $50,000. 3 nursing students are already studying under the Rebecca Martinez program, specializing in trauma care and patient advocacy. The memorial on Highway 23 now includes a plaque about her dedication to healing others. And late at night, when I'm alone in the broadcast booth, I sometimes feel a presence, not trapped or desperate, but peaceful and proud. Rebecca Martinez taught me that some connections transcend death, that healers never truly stop healing, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply listening to their story.